You're still watching the Afia Business Morning, and this is the Eastern Business Report designed to bring you up to speed on business activities and policies affecting businesses and the economy of the southeastern region of Nigeria. It comes after Global Business on the Afia Business Morning. And on today's edition of the Eastern Business Report, we will be looking at the business of the waste management industry. My name is Marvelous Apwamaga. Welcome to the Eastern Business Report. Welcome back to the Eastern Business Report. And like I said before we went on that quick break, on today's edition, we will be looking at the business of waste management. And joining me on this conversation is Mr. Henry Chiwoba, Executive Director, Whichway NG. You're welcome on the program, sir.
Thank you very much.
How are you doing today?
Very fine, madam.
So Enugu State has been experiencing rapid urbanization, which has led to the increase of waste in the state. How can proper waste management become a revenue source for the Enugu State government? Because this has been a major concern.
Okay, so there's something I call the Enugu waste economy. And I think that's something that the Enugu State government should begin to look into. Currently, the state is investing heavily on infrastructure, urbanizing the town generally, but not much has been done in terms of providing infrastructure in waste management. And the last time we discussed, we talked about decentralizing the waste management system in Enugu. There's actually no system yet, but we need to create a system. And it is from that system that the government can then generate a revenue. And in that decentralization, what we are talking about is bringing in private actors and then the government playing a regulation. For example, I am one of the advocates that says that Nigerians and Enugu people will pay for services when they get it. For instance, if the state provides waste managers across the different parts of Enugu who come to your houses weekly or daily, depending on what routine is there, to collect the trash at your door or by your gate, and you are meant to pay a token of 1,000 or 1,500, I don't think we will be having this waste problem, because these waste managers will come, pick the trash, and the state government will generate revenue from that. Imagine that all the flats in Enugu, if we have 1 million flats in Enugu, pay 1,000 naira at the end of the month. How much do you think that the state government will generate from that? That's so close to 1 billion naira monthly. So this is what we are saying. There is huge resources, there is huge revenue in that waste sector that is yet untapped. And these are issues around policy, just like I've said before, decentralizing, and it begins with the policy making. So once that policy comes into play and actors are brought in, then the system will become liberal, the state will benefit from it economically, and the citizens will also benefit, and the state will be cleaner.
Yeah, in Enugu State now we are looking for a way to keep the state clean, or to maintain the cleanliness that's currently, happening in the state. And you mentioned people going to doorsteps, collecting trash, and I remember when I was staying with my grandma in Ababa, that was some years ago, there were people coming to collect trash from the house. But there was a time we also heard that these people take this trash and dump them in this one Mary something at that Ababa area, and that's where they dump them. So don't you think this would, lead to some sort of bringing back the old states of the environment?
So if you listened to what I said the government, ESWAMA, for example, will play a regulatory role.
Okay.
So supervising these managers, you do not have one manager managing an entire stretch. You give people block by block to manage. So it is easy for you to come in and say, this has happened within your space. What is going on?
Accountability.
There's accountability and transparency in the entire system.
Okay.
And that's what we are saying. So if somebody manages mayor, for example, whatever happened in that mayor axis, he takes responsibility, and it doesn't. No, the government does not care. So whatever you do to maintain the cleanliness of your environment, you do it, and the government is the enforcer of the law. So if any individual is found wanting, you remember growing up in the 90s, there used to be these health workers who go around in white shirts and brown trousers to inspect the environment. We need to bring back, and these people are there taking salary and doing very minimal jobs. We need to get them engaged. Let them work with these waste managers to ensure the enforcement of the policy of cleanliness. And then Enugu State will be better for it. Yet there'll be more money in the pockets of the government, and the people also will be happier, because it burdens me, for example, who would have to drive out of my house on a daily basis with trash in my trunk to come and drop. Sometimes you drive out only for the purpose of disposing trash and driving back. So I would prefer to pay 1,000 or 1,500 for someone to come pick it from my doorsteps. And
now, it's obvious the waste management sector in Enugu State is fully managed by the government, and you spoke rather severally about decentralization. I would like you to share more light on decentralization. How should the government go about it?
Okay, so for me, in terms of decentralization, it's going to be a multi-sectoral, a multi-agency participation. Because for you to effectively do that, different stakeholders need to play in this environment. We talked about the markets. The markets are never clean, like you said. The market managers, those who run the markets, the Omata people, according to what they are called, these people are key actors in this thing. They need to be brought on board. When you come to communities, there are people who are like the gatekeepers of those communities. Those people need to be brought on board because they know the houses one after the other. So the Enugu State Waste Management Agency needs to have what looks like a town hall meeting where the different stakeholders within the state needs to be brought in to bring in the suggestions, a homegrown idea of how this policy should be formed. And ultimately, in the end, when the policy has been drafted, bring in technology for the the revenue collection process so that it is transparent and reduce human interference in terms of the collection of the funds. And then the state can benefit sufficiently, and the waste managers can also benefit sufficiently. So it is for example, the Ministry of Lands would have to come into play to tell us how many buildings are in certain areas, such that when you put that up in a system, you can simply say, okay, in XYZ areas, we have 20 flats. And as such, we are expecting 20,000 at the end of the month from the waste managers. So the waste managers cannot cheat the government, because it is the Ministry of Lands and Urban Development that issue approvals for the erection of this land. And when the buildings are complete, they are also aware. So they can tell us how many buildings we have in a particular street and how many flats are there. And then the waste management can then say, okay, because based on this, if we have 2 managers in this street, you are handling this portion, you are handling this portion, we're expecting you to be able to generate XYZ fund. And with the use of technology, we can know who has not paid and who has paid. It's as simple as that.
We've been talking about the government generating funds. We've not talked about this private sector themselves, or even individuals, stakeholders, like you mentioned. Now, there are people who, because I've heard some people some time ago say they are really interested in the waste management business, but there's no fund, and they really do not know how to go about it. And I'm glad you're here. So please, can you tell us, if we want to go into the waste management industry, what should we do? How do we go about it?
First is policy formation. It is difficult for anybody except for estates like these. For example, this building now, the estate that covers here, can engage a waste manager to come collect waste. Do you understand? But if there is a policy that says that In the entire Abakpa stretch, we have 10 waste managers, and they cover XYZ routes or streets, number of streets in those areas. And you are expected to pay your waste levy, just as the Enugu State Board of Internal Revenue collects taxes from businesses in Enugu State. That is also how the waste management system should be designed. Every resident, every apartment, every business in Enugu is supposed to pay as little as 1,000 naira for that waste to be properly collected and disposed for them. So what we are saying is, let there be a policy in place, let the infrastructure, let the structures and the system be put in place that will accommodate these waste managers. If I have the funds to do waste management business, for example, and there is no law backing me up to say if a person defaults in paying, then he can then be prosecuted by the law or by the state, then I'm just doing a private business, and it is only those who are willing to pay for my services that I would engage. But if there is a policy that mandates you to dispose your waste in a particular way, for your waste to be collected in a particular way, because the current waste collection system is not functional and is not as effective as it should be, we need a better system. And in that better system, one of the key factors is decentralization, system formation, policy formation, and essentially infrastructural building.
How many jobs do you think this waste management industry would create for Enugu State? Because we're talking about decentralizing the waste management sector. How many jobs do you think this would create for people, residents in Enugu State?
If we want to give it, let's be very conservative. If we want to be very conservative, we're looking at about 3,000 jobs within Enugu Urban. If we want to be conservative, we're looking at about close to about 3,000 direct jobs. We're not talking about the indirect ones for the recyclers, the scavengers like we discussed about and all of those things, but the direct persons who are going to be involved in the day-to-day management, collection, the administrators of this waste and all of those things. We're looking at about 3,000 youth who will be engaged.
Could you be exact? The administrator?
While it will be difficult for you to be exact is because, for example, in the decentralization system, you may not know the number of waste managers that the state will be engaging.
Okay.
But if the state is able to engage, let's say, 100 waste managers, which will be inadequate, which will still be a chunk for them to manage. Because 100 means that, let's say, we'll be having like 5 to manage New Haven, the entire of New Haven. Do you understand? Now, for those 5 companies to effectively function in New Haven, they need a manager, they need an accountant, they need waste collectors, they need a driver. So for those 5, we are looking at about already close to 25 to 100 jobs in New Haven alone. You go to Gariki, densely populated. You come to the entire stretch of Abani Road. One day is there, Meniri is there, Mount is there, Achara Layout is there. You know, you keep coming and you get to a new market area, you go to Abakpa, you go to MNA. All of these places are going to have jobs that will be created and employment created for at least 100 persons in each of those localities. And that's what we are saying.
You're a keen advocate for recycling. And, you know, the last time we had a conversation about recycling, the SPA was on the AM show with Natalie and mentioned that we do not need water for recycling. You stated that we need water for recycling if we must recycle in Enugu State, which is one of the reasons why people do not recycle often. And he stated that we do not need water for recycling. I'd like you to speak to that.
Okay, it depends on what you are recycling and what you are not recycling.
Okay.
For example, if you want to recycle plastic bottles, you need water to clean them, because a used plastic bottle that has been disposed is already contaminated, so you need to wash before you reuse. So that's a place for where you need water. That's just one example of the many. The other area where you may not need water is in agriculture, where you may be making compost from the waste, like organic manures, which are very effective in crop production today. They are seen to have been more effective than inorganic manure, than the fertilizers that we use. And these are from food remnants that we have at home, that we produce at home, or the ones that are even coming from restaurants that are disposed today in public places that causes the stench in the environment. If you go around some of the big eateries in Enugu, this kind of stench that come from the drainages is appalling. And these are things that can be. I remember growing my days in the university, there's this place they call sewage, where they collect all the sewage waste and recycle it into organic manures for the agricultural department. And that's what they use to grow their crops. So this is a system that could also be brought into Enugu State. And those compost waste could be used for the agriculture. The non-decomposable ones could be used for an array. We talked about plastic pure water sachets. Pure water sachets could be used to even mix concrete for building, because they do not decompose. There are certain technologies that have been used to do that, to build. So there are a whole, but you need to sort those wastes before all of this can be done. And we talked about sorting the waste, and we talked about knowing how to separate waste, knowing how to collect the waste at the point of use. The person who is generating the waste must know how to separate this waste so that it is easy for those who want to recycle to sort the waste out and then recycle effectively.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chibuba. So what kind of policies, should be in place to strengthen the waste management in Enugu State? Because we said a lot about, you said policies, you said infrastructure, and a lot of them. So what kind of policies do you think the government should put in place to strengthen the waste management in Enugu State?
We're looking at policies. First of all, we need to begin to see policies that, first of all, contraband certain instruments of use, like plastic waste. We need to see how we regulate the use of plastic and replace those with maybe paper bags. Such kind of policies, we should begin to look at those kind of policies. Although I understand the business angle to it and the competition that they're daring. And also the advocates for climate change will tell you that using paper bags means also increasing deforestation, cutting down trees to produce paper. But we have talked also about recycling, so we can recycle paper to produce paper bags. Yes, we recycle paper waste to produce paper bags, and it's an effective system that would work. So when we talk about policies, we also talk about policies that will bring in private sector as actors in the waste management system. That's in the decentralization system. So those are policies that would put in place to allow for actors to come in, for stakeholders to come in the waste management business and become players, active players in the system. And that also will also contribute to making Enugu State a cleaner state and a more effective state in waste management.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chuba. Is there any other thing you want to add before we go?
Well, the thing I want to say is to really commend the Enugu State government for what they are doing, and also to commend Afia TV and the management of Afia TV for also focusing essentially on this issue of waste, because not very many people speak much about it, and not very many people are keen about the waste management system in Nigeria and in the state. So yeah, I'm really delighted that the station is making deliberate effort to call the attention of the state, of policy formators, of the actors in the industry, to say that this is something that we should look at. And just like I would always say, they say cleanliness is next to godliness, and we should always try to be clean.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chuba, Executive Director, Which Way Engine. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
Now, this is the size of the package today on the Eastern Business Report. You're still watching the Afia Business Morning live from Enugu State, Nigeria. Kindly join in on this conversation and watching live right now on our dedicated Afia Business YouTube channel. Kindly type in the search bar www.youtube.com/@AfiaBusiness. Do well to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for all business-related content. Coming up next is Afia. My name is Marvelous Apuamaga. Please stay tuned.